Hey y'all, it's Ashley Bookish Room and I'm back with another video. Oh gosh, as you can see by the title of this video, I had some interesting thoughts that happened over the course of the past couple weeks. So if you did not notice, which if you are a regular part of my channel, then you know that I have not put up any new content in almost 2 weeks. And I had put out a tweet and a message on the community boards stating that I was going to be taking kind of like a week break from everything just to kind of detox. And I wanted to make a discussion video kind of talking about what exactly happened and why I was kind of on the verge of saying like I don't know if I want to do booktube anymore. And it wasn't anything specifically that the booktube community as a whole did. It was a lot of external factors that kind of kicked in, and it took me on a whirlwind adventure. And I also wanted to make this video because I'm going to be talking a lot about mental health. So if that is going to bother you in any way, I just want to go ahead and put that out there. I won't be going into specifics per se because I just won't. I just can't right now, but I will be addressing it kind of in a broad sense. And I also would like to say this video was not pre-recorded at all. I am literally filming this probably like 24 hours before it's about to go up. So this is true to nature, right at the end of me kind of taking a break and having this discussion about doing mental health check-ins and being a part of this community. So I know that I said I was taking a break, but the actual issues that led to my final breaking point was probably about a month in the making. I have had a lot going on and I never took a step back to kind of check in with myself to make sure that I was doing okay. And it ended up being one of those things that gradually just kind of spiraled out of control. It started with just not reading really much of anything except comics and kind of binging audiobooks to regressing to reading absolutely nothing. And I was having a hard time finding myself wanting to write reviews. I was putting up content within the past month clearly, but if you had not noticed since January, my content has been slowly reducing itself over the course of the months. I went from doing 3 videos a week to doing 2, and eventually I was okay, I'm just gonna do 1 video a week because that's all I want to do. And I did not realize that I was becoming so detached with the community. I was becoming very overwhelmed with the community, and I was becoming just overwhelmed with the thought of reading because I had not checked in with myself mentally and I had not put up any sense of boundaries. And I think that one of the most interesting things that I feel we don't talk about enough in our community is that we put up boundaries in terms of creator to watcher, but putting up boundaries in terms of creator to everything, and especially to these unwritten rules of what it means to be a booktuber. And this is just from my personal experience. This has nothing to do with anybody's channel success, anybody's ability to produce booktube content at high rates, people's ability to read lots of books. This is just my personal experience and how certain elements of our community, as it would probably be in any community, kind of negatively affected me mentally, and it caused me to want to no longer do the thing. So what I think I was struggling with is this sense of balance. I know probably a lot of people have heard of the term work-life balance, where I think I kind of do a good job with that in my work life, where I shut everything down when I'm off for the day. And sometimes I'll talk things out with my dad via phone call after I get off of work, but for the most part I try not to carry any of that stuff with me afterwards. But booktube is a little different. It's not really a job, it's a hobby, but then because of the monetization aspect of it, some people do consider it partly a job, and we're considered influencers, so that kind of is a job title. So it's a weird line to kind of draw with BookTube. And to be honest, I wasn't creating a balance between BookTube work and my personal life, and BookTube was becoming this kind of area for me where I wasn't managing my expectations well. I was setting up expectations for content creation, for reading, for reviewing, for being in contact with publishers, and not being realistic. I am a full-time parent. Most of you know that I am a single mother. Most of you know that I have a full-time job outside of BookTube, that I work close to 40 hours a week, plus some, depending upon like whether I have some special projects that I've been working on or things that I need to consider outside of. I don't like to do that a lot, but sometimes it does happen. I, try to find interest in other things outside of BookTube, because there is a life outside of BookTube and reading. But I love reading. I joined BookTube because of community, and I don't have a lot of people in my personal life that like to read the way that I read, and I always say that. And I did tell myself, this year I wanted to make the content that I wanted to make. I think I've been doing some kind of different things, cooking and reviewing and reacting to some really interesting things, making a lot of discussion and commentary videos, which I think are kind of like my strongest point. I think I'm coming to learn. It's where I feel like I excel a lot. But even in doing what you love so much, I think there's a point in which you still have to draw that line, and you have to draw that boundary and realize that what one person does in the community, I may not necessarily be capable of handling. And it almost is like that keeping up with the Joneses effect. There is no written rule or handbook that says that you have to create X amount of videos a week and upload them at this time, and half of them need to be premieres, and you need to do an X amount of live shows. But I think that a lot of us have felt that pressure, and I can't speak for everyone. Just, I've talked to people before from my own personal experience. It's easy to get caught up in that pressure and to feel that pressure. And it can be tough. It can be really, really hard, because then you stop realizing that you just do not have the capacity to do those things. And even with the success of my channel, and I think that I do put out decent content, I feel like, I do some important things in the community, I don't have the capacity to do everything that everyone else does. I don't have the support in the background to be able to do some of the things that some other people are capable of doing. I don't have the time. I did not put up any pre-filmed things during my time off intentionally, because I needed a clean break. I think that there's nothing wrong with people who take a break. You don't know they're taking a break because they've put up pre-filmed content. I think that's great, but I needed a genuine break, like nothing. I needed to go cold turkey, because I feel like I had become so immersed in our community that I lost me a little bit. And I know that that's probably awkward, but think about it this way. You know me through the lens that I give to you, which is the screen of your device, whatever device you may be using. You don't have a full scope of my life. And in that sense, you would have no idea that I was struggling so much behind the scenes. Even with people who talk to me behind the scenes, did not know the full scope of how much I was struggling. I have two specific friends in this community who I have been talking to, who kind of know like what I have been dealing with, but for the most part, most people didn't know. And I think that it's important to acknowledge where you are and what place you're in mentally when you're a part of this community. I have struggled with a lot of mental health issues for a very, very long time. And I do have specific diagnoses that I won't get into. I've talked about them before, but I won't get into them specifically here. But When I took that break a week ago, I was at the worst point that I had been in a few years, and it was the scariest feeling that I've ever had in my life, because I had not been there, and I didn't even recognize that I was heading to that point, because I was just so busy scheduling my time and filling up my plate with stuff, with work, trying to manage raising a whole toddler, and trying to have a life outside, as much as a life as I can have in the middle of a pandemic, but just having a life outside of this, and then trying to put out content and do this and do that. And it got so bad, with people DMing me, asking for recommendations, DMing me, asking me for job advice. And it's nothing wrong with that. Like, I don't want to come off as someone who's complaining. I also don't want to make anyone feel bad for doing that, because you couldn't have known, and I did not set that boundary. So I take responsibility for that. But it becomes a lot. It is very overwhelming, and I think that's a side of BookTube that people don't know and don't see. And it's a side of BookTube that we don't talk about, that with any social media platform, when you reach a certain follower count, I think that there are aspects of it that we don't discuss. And it's not to say that people have bad intentions. I think most people have good intentions, but the boundaries get crossed sometimes, and it can be very overwhelming, because you don't want to be rude to people that you don't know, but you also want to say, I'm only one person, and there are 30 of you asking me for things, and only one of me being able to provide an answer. I don't think anybody who is on the receiving end of that is nasty about it, or wants to be nasty about it, or is unappreciative of the support that they get. But I think you also have to understand, especially for those who struggle with mental health stuff in general, it is hard to have that much information coming at you at one time, and having to process it, and having to ignore some things. Like, there are people who ask me stuff and I just don't have the capacity to answer, and then I feel bad for not answering, and then I just feel bad for not doing certain things, and not fulfilling people's expectations, and not doing what I said I was going to do. And I feel like an awful human, and I know that I'm not an awful human, but I think that because I felt like I needed to do it all, I didn't give myself any grace, and I spiraled so out of control in ways that were not even apparent to anyone, not even in my real life. Like, no one. So I really felt the need to kind of check in with myself. And by the time that I had made that post on Twitter, I had realized that mentally I was not doing okay. I was not okay. And for me, it was pretty ironic that all of this happened, the peak of it, because like I said, it had been building up, but the peak of it happened during Mental Health Awareness Month, which is May. And I'm like, oh, the irony of this all, because goodness gracious, this was just not the best timing in the world for this to have happened. But I want to kind of put it out there that I think that it's important for us to make sure that we're constantly checking in with ourselves and really learning what our limitations are, because some people have the time, some people have the capacity, some people have the support that maybe some of us in the community don't have. And that's not to fault those people, but it is also a reality. Like for me, my time in which to film, like my window, is not as big as people think it is, okay? And people are like, oh yeah, you could bulk film. For me, that's like when would I ever bulk film? A lot of times when you see me like put up content, it's like literally 48 to 72 hours before it goes up is when I film. And that's because of the fact that I literally just do not have the time to sit down and bulk film. I work a full-time job. I do not like staying up past 11 o'clock because I have to be up at 6 o'clock the next morning. And that's taking care of myself physically. And then on the weekends, my weekends are the time that I spend with my child. Like that is our time. And, you know, with restrictions and stuff changing, of course, still practicing safe measures, wearing your mask and doing what you're supposed to be doing in terms of like what the CDC is recommending. But there are things now that we could do that we weren't able to do. Like we were able to go paint in the park one weekend, and like it's stuff like that. Like, but having a toddler and doing day events like that is exhausting as a parent. And a lot of parents will tell you that because toddlers are these little people with all of these emotions, and they can't talk about their emotions, so they frequently have meltdowns. And it is perfectly acceptable. It is developmentally acceptable. But dealing with that as one person is very, very exhausting. So by the time that we get home after stuff like that, I want to sleep. I want to relax. I want to unwind. I want to detox. I want to talk to friends. I want to watch a crappy TV show. I don't want to sit down and feel like I'm being pressured to film and work and do this and do. I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. So literally, I film whenever I can. Sometimes it's at night. Sometimes it's always at night, actually. It's always at night because I work 5 days a week, and my weekends are the only times that I'm open. I can't film with my toddler because it wouldn't work. So nighttime is the only time that I can film. So if I have an hour or 2 hours of chunks of time in which I can film, I'll do it, but I don't have the time to bulk film. So that's a challenge for me. I am at the mercy of my neighbors. Sometimes they're extremely noisy. I can't change that. So then that cuts down on filming time. And, you know, sometimes I want to do reading vlogs and I just don't have the time. I don't have the capacity. I can't keep up with everyone else because I have so much else going on that is off screen. I have things going on that you cannot see, and that's not to diminish what people are doing. It's not to diminish the time that some people have to do vlogs or diminish the fact that there are people who can bulk film. But I think for me and looking at myself and holding myself to a standard that is acceptable for my life, it's not that. If I can do it, I can do it. If I can't, then I just can't. And I felt like because I was fighting so hard to do what everyone else was doing and to keep up, that I mentally destroyed myself. And I'm so pissed at myself for doing that because I'm better than that. I know that I have a different schedule, a different setup for my personal life that does not reflect the other lives of people in this community who I love and adore and care about. Don't get me wrong. I don't fault anybody for having more time than me or maybe having a different support system. Like, I have a support system. My support system is just not physically here. So, you know, I can't fault people for having, you know, a support system in which maybe they can have someone that can give them a little bit of extra time, or someone, you know, who does not have little ones has a little bit of extra time, or maybe someone who doesn't work a traditional 9-to-5 job has a little bit more time and flexibility than I do. I'm not faulting people, but I think it is a point of reality. And I'm hoping, because like I said, I can't say this is happening or it isn't happening because I'm not living in anybody else's shoes. You know, we all have personal lives outside of these screens, and even those of us who are friendly in the community, unless, like, honestly, for me, there are two people in this community that, like, I talk to about personal things that are going on in my life. Unless it's the two of them, like, you don't know. So I expect the same for other people. Like, I don't know what's going on personally in their life. I don't know what their schedules look like, and I don't know if this is happening, but I'm hoping that people are checking in with themselves mentally, because what I went through over the course of this past month, and I don't want to get emotional about it, so I know my voice is probably like shaking a little bit, but what I went through over the past month, I don't want anybody else in this community to go through, because it's a tough place to be, and it was a tough place for me to be personally. And like I said, it's not anything that BookTube did. No one in the community did anything. There's nobody to point fingers at. There's no one specific event. I wasn't attacked, like nothing like that. I just was not being mindful of what I have going on. Trying to be Superwoman when I'm human. I'm just one person. I'm a human being, and that's all I can be. And I felt like I drove myself to a very dangerous point for me in terms of like my mental health. And I hope that no one else is ever in that position, or no one is currently in that position. So like, you're hearing it from me. If you need to take a break, take a break. If you need a clean cut, do a clean cut. Don't feel like you're letting anybody down. Don't feel like you're disappointing anybody. Don't feel like you're not living up to BookTube expectations. Don't feel like you're not a good booktuber because you're not putting out content as frequently as other people, or your content is not the same as other people's. You have to do what's best for you, and what is best for everyone else may not be in your best interest. What everyone is doing content wise, it may not work for you. What everybody's doing in terms of their upload schedule, it may not work for you. People can be premiering every video. Guess what? You may not be able to. People may be doing videos 3-4 times a week. Guess what? You may have the capacity to do a video every other week, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. Even if you say, you know what, I can only do like 2-3 videos a month. So what? So what? If it means that you and your sanctity, your safe space, your mental health, if that is what's being protected, I will always tell people in this community, protect that at all costs. Because at the end of the day, when this camera turns off, as much as I love y'all, as much as I love this community, I don't have y'all here with me. I can't take y'all with me everywhere that I go, and I can't have you here physically with me, coaching me through what I may be struggling with mentally. I don't have that ability, and I don't want to disappoint people, but in me trying not to disappoint people, I disappointed myself. You can't be of any good to anyone until you're good to yourself. And your mental health is very, very important. It gets you from day to day. And if that's destroyed, what is BookTube then? What does BookTube matter at that point? So yeah, I just want to make sure that y'all check in with yourself. Make sure you're constantly checking in with yourself. Take breaks when you need to take breaks. Don't feel like you're making excuses. Don't feel like you're not a good booktuber. It's okay. It's fine. You know, screw an algorithm. Don't not do something for fear of the algorithm not working in your favor because you took a break. It's life. It's life. It is okay. Who you are and your mental health matters more than anything else. So yeah, if you like this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more content from me, make sure you click the subscribe button, hit the bell for notifications, and I will be back with another video soon. I am not going to put a time on that. It's just soon. All right, y'all.